In humanity's greatest accomplishments lies the simplest yet significant guidance to success. And it applies equally to great accomplishments and our own personal lives as well. Humans redefined possible by walking on the moon. And the reason they were able to walk on the moon is because they had three things. They had a clearly defined goal. They believed in it. They collectively believed it was important and that it was possible, even though they didn't know how they would do it. And finally, they worked in a creative and collaborative problem-solving environment despite many setbacks and failures. You know, even though I wasn't born when humans walked on the moon, it inspired me. It changed my life. When I was a young Canadian, I looked at images of humans standing on the moon, and I thought to myself, that is incredible. In fact, it changed the way I looked at the moon. When I would walk out and look at the night sky with the moon, I would realize there were footprints there, that humans had been there and come back. And it forever changed the way I looked at the moon. In fact, it inspired me to set a goal myself to become a space explorer. I changed my treehouse into a rocket ship. I had gauges and dials and controls. I had a map of the universe that I had drawn in there, and I was going on space missions. But then I inadvertently started to do something else that really changed the trajectory of my life. I shared that goal with other people, with parents, teachers, mentors. And these are the people who truly enabled me to start working towards that goal. They started challenging me and enabling me in the achievement of it. And even though I've yet to fly in space, I'm still working towards that goal. It still drives me today. I believe in it. I'm filled up by it. I'm motivated by it. And I share and collaborate with others in the achievement of that goal. Let me give you another example of changing the impossible to possible, one that I personally witnessed. When I started this journey as an astronaut over a decade ago, there was a company, SpaceX, that was talking about changing space transportation. They wanted to reduce the cost of getting to space, and they were going to do it by landing and reusing their rockets, just like we reuse airplanes. In fact, just recently, I watched 4 of my friends launch from the Kennedy Space Center aboard a SpaceX rocket on their way to the International Space Station. And while they were traveling, that 10 minutes that they were accelerating from 0 to 28,000 kilometers an hour, something else very special happened in there. The first part of their rocket, the bottom stage, the first stage of their rocket, came back and landed on a barge in the ocean. And it's important because we're intending to reuse that rocket in the spring to launch the next crew to the International Space Station. But here's what's neat about that story. 10 years ago, I was listening to people that had a lot of experience in the space industry, and many of them were saying, landing a rocket is not possible. And it's not my business. You know, I just train to fly rockets. I don't build them and design them. I don't know a lot about that, but these very experienced people had an impact on me. They started to make me question, well, is it really possible to land a rocket? I thought maybe they were correct. Well, obviously, today we know that it is possible to land a rocket. In fact, I've witnessed it with my own eyes where I went and saw the Falcon Heavy launch where 2 of those first stage boosters, after they've used up almost all their fuel, they turn around and they fly back to the Cape and they land. They landed in formation. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen with my own eyes. And it is an important reminder that we can achieve the impossible. Now, when it comes to some of the challenges we face, humanity faces together on this planet, I just want to start by acknowledging that we have always faced great challenges. It's not unique today to be in a situation where we have to tackle some incredibly daunting challenges for humanity. But what's important is that we frame them by setting goals. We collectively believe in the achievement of those goals, and then we collaborate and work together to get them done. And I'd love to communicate and share with you a little bit about how I view space today, how it has changed, and why I think it is really, really important to the future of humanity. You know, today in our connected world, we're starting to see that problems that we might have thought of as regional before are not regional, they're global. They're global problems. For example, I think climate change does provide us a really great example of a problem set like this. And I believe space infrastructure is uniquely suited to help us as one of the important pillars, a tool that we can use to work together collaboratively as humanity to solve this important challenge. And the other aspect of that is this international collaboration. And we've proven in space that we can get some incredible things done when we work together internationally. And I'll give you some examples. One of my favorites, of course, is the International Space Station. But let's start with climate change. Canada's future economic and environmental security, as well as the safety and well-being of its citizens, is threatened by climate change. But by tackling it and working together, we can secure a better world for all of us, not just Canada. So let's talk about the problem from the point of view of basic needs. When I look at climate change, I view it from the fact that I believe it will threaten our ability to supply clean drinking water to humans around the world. I look at it from changing weather patterns with respect to water. Now we see some areas have too much water, which I've seen myself in Houston a number of times now with excessive or huge storms and water or flooding, excessive flooding. I've seen examples of too much water in those areas, but then not enough water in other areas, leading to droughts and challenges to providing food, or fires, huge wildfires threatening the security of humans. In the future, as climate change progresses, we see a threat to food supplies in different regions of the planet. We realize that our existence here on the planet is supported largely by huge demands of energy, historically provided largely by fossil fuels and the burning of fossil fuels. But climate change is going to force us to rethink how we address the energy needs of our population. Of course, safety of our nations, of our citizens is going to be affected by climate change. I've already mentioned a couple of those. Fires and floods, these things will become more prevalent. And if we want to provide for the safety of our citizens, we're going to have to do a better job of predicting them and preventing these things, or preparing ourselves for their arrival so that we can mitigate the risks. And then security. As we put more and more demands on these basic needs for people, we will have to deal with the threat of those who would deny those basic needs for others in an effort to secure them for themselves. And so just the aspect of security, being able to monitor our planet and make sure we're providing for the security of our citizens. All of these issues that I've quickly gone over are addressed in some way or fashion by space assets. This idea, in my mind, is that space has become critical to servicing these needs for not just Canadians, but the world. So if we're to address these climate change stressors on our planet, we're going to need to have a better understanding of all of these aspects. So for example, if you want to take the heartbeat of the planet, one of the best places to do it is from space. If you have, this is the Earth, and you take a satellite and you put it in an orbit from north to south around the poles of the planet, and then of course the Earth is spinning underneath that satellite orbit and it turns, you can monitor the entire planet with satellite assets. You can take the heartbeat of the entire planet, not just one region, but everywhere. And from space, we can see in a lot of the factors that I was talking about earlier. We can see where the water is, where the water isn't, where we think it's going. We can see where we still have ice and where the ice is melting. We can see huge storms from space. We can monitor fires, hopefully detecting them earlier so that we can extinguish them before they threaten lives. We can monitor all of the greenhouse gases from space, or at least most of them, to get a global picture of how these gases are moving, where they're coming from, and what the most effective changes will be to address them. And this idea of space infrastructure, to date, largely it has been, nations themselves putting space infrastructure in space by themselves. But in the future, one of our challenges is to come together, to work more collaboratively on an international level to add to this space infrastructure and make contributions to it and allow all of us to benefit from that infrastructure. So let me give you an example of collaboration in space, the International Space Station. It isn't necessarily easier to tackle a big problem internationally. In fact, from my perspective, it's harder. You have to deal with budgets of different nations, you have to deal with different cultures, you have to deal with the bureaucracy, and all of that makes it hard to work together internationally. However, the International Space Station is a really great example of how we have done more together than we could have done on our own. And in 2020, this marks 20 years of a continuous human presence aboard the International Space Station. This is probably, well, many would argue that, the whole purpose of the space station, of course, is research and the benefits to humanity, and I absolutely fundamentally believe in that. We've done some incredible research on board the International Space Station. But in my humble perspective, the greatest achievement of the International Space Station is the example of what we can accomplish when we work together. I don't know if you've ever seen the International Space Station fly over your house, but you can look it up online when it'll pass over your city, and you should go out in the night sky and look at it sometime. It's the third brightest object in the night sky, or in the sky, after the sun, the moon, and the International Space Station. But the point is, it is literally a shining example of what humanity can accomplish when we set big goals and we come together and work collaboratively to accomplish them. Now, another example of working together is the International Charter for Disasters. Many countries partner with their individual space infrastructure assets to help one another in times of adversity. So for example, if there's a flood or a wildfire, then countries will share their data to help those first responders for free. And we've been doing this for a great deal of time now, and it's another great example of working together. Now, Canada is particularly well positioned to leverage niche areas that it has been working on for decades to serve in not just climate change, but other areas of adversity that humanity faces. But along the lines of climate change, we have some really great assets. RadarSat constellation, a new satellite that we've put in orbit, or a new satellite system we've put in orbit that allows us to monitor the entire planet. It can see through clouds. It can help us see where the ice is, where the water is, where the water isn't. It can monitor our borders. We can look for illegal fishing, illegal pollution. The list goes on and on. We have some great assets with respect to climate change, monitoring the gases in our atmosphere. And it isn't by accident that we have these niche areas that we can contribute to global solutions. It's from deliberate scientific efforts and innovation that we've been working on for decades in Canada. And one of the important things to understand is none of this stuff happens by accident. It happens when you set goals for your country, when you believe that they're important and you collaborate with a bunch of other people and you bring together minds who individually would have accomplished great things, but when they come together with a common goal, they redefine possible. And something I would like you to understand is that opportunity must be seized. And right now, with all of the challenges that humanity faces, we must be very intentional as a country to organize ourselves, to not just support Canada, but to start creating global solutions, to keep contributing to these global solutions. What drives us at the Canadian Space Agency to continue to explore and leverage space is that we believe that setting these big goals to tackle challenges, the challenges that humanity faces, and then collaborating with the international community not only serves our country, but also serves the entire planet. We have many challenges in this year that we're all very, very much aware of. COVID-19 is putting a lot of stress on our economy. It's forcing us to change the ways in which we do things. And space has a very important role to play. And you, as Canadian citizens, can help us contribute in that vein. We are prepared to start investing in what we would call jobs of the future, jobs that will affect our economy for decades to come, jobs that will not only allow us to support ourselves and our families, but also contribute to these issues around the world, like climate change. There's some other really fascinating areas that we're working on, the Canadian Space Agency, with other government departments. For example, medicine. COVID has really changed the way we look at telemedicine, for example. We've always had a big challenge in Canada of delivering healthcare services in isolated regions of Canada. But now with COVID, we see that telemedicine can serve our needs even in larger centers where medical services have largely been available. Today, with restricted movement, more difficult movement for seniors and at-risk populations, telemedicine can serve significantly in that vein. And it's an area of specific interest for the Canadian Space Station or Space Agency. As we move towards exploring deeper into space, we're also interested in telemedicine so that we can keep astronaut populations healthy in deep space. Same with food. We're very much interested in growing food in deep space, out on the lunar surface or on Mars. But with climate change, it's going to become more and more important to be able to provide food security for isolated regions in Canada. So this is another area where our interests in space are merging with our needs on the planet in a time of crisis, and we can work together to bring solutions. And this is where it comes back to you. You're looking at your future, your areas of interest. I fundamentally believe that we all have we all have our own area of contribution to provide to humanity. You will all find things that you are good at or areas of passion. And as you look at those areas of passion, I encourage you to set big goals. Believe that it is possible. And then share those goals with other people so you can collaborate and create a problem-solving environment around yourself in the pursuit of those goals. And by practicing this for yourself and by practicing it as part of our nation's strategy to solving problems, we can redefine possible.